All right, welcome back to the Founder-Led Marketing Show. In today's episode, we talk about how to incorporate founder-led marketing into your marketing strategy, how you can help your founder and CEO to post consistently on LinkedIn to generate demand, drive pipeline, and generate revenue for your company.
You have like three basically parts written down on your post, which is like how to integrate, how to measure, and then leverage via paid ads. But before we jump into that, I guess it would be cool to just speak about it real quick, like what companies should even consider to incorporate founder branding. Like any size, any stage, what would you say?
At any stage, there is a certain approach to it that makes sense. So I think if you look at Elon Musk, that's founder branding. I mean, that's founder-led marketing, right? I mean, he is actively posting on X, formerly known as Twitter. He is doing keynotes, he's doing interviews, he is on podcasts, speaking, sharing his journey, sharing, what they're doing at SpaceX and Tesla and all the companies that he has, right? And that's a publicly traded company. Then, if you look at an example like Clary, they are a 700 people B2B software company, Series D or Series E, something like that. Quite a mature company. And their founder and their CEO, I forgot his name. They started, incorporating founder branding into their marketing mix, where their CEO is now posting every single day on LinkedIn. And Devin Reed, I think their head of thought leadership, is sharing about how it's driving a lot of attention and pipeline for them. So it's working. The companies that we work with are generally between 10 to 100 employees. So we obviously believe it works there. When you have, I think that's probably the sweet spot, which is when you have validated your ICP, you have validated your sales process, you're starting to now make it repeatable, you're maturing out of founder-led sales. So you're bringing on a sales leader and the first sales rep to do the selling for you. You have validated unit economics. And so now it's about scaling it up. But you are not yet leading like 1,000 people organization and a publicly traded company. So you can still get a little down and dirty, getting involved hands-on in your marketing. So I think that's the sweet spot. And then before that, seed stage, 1 to 10 employees, you're just starting out. I think it makes a lot of sense to get things off the ground. You might not be able to have a team support you. You might not be able to hire an agency like ours to do it, but you can definitely go out there and post stuff on LinkedIn. I think in that case, when you don't know exactly what you're selling and to whom, you haven't validated ICP yet, you haven't figured out exactly what messages resonate with them yet, then it's a lot about building in public, right? And just documenting your journey and talking about what you're trying out and new features you're building and, that sort of stuff. So I think at every stage of the journey, there is a way to make it work. Now, what you talk about it, how you talk about it, the process behind it is different as you mature, but I think it can always be applied at any stage.
So let's talk about how to integrate it, right? You have a couple of bullet points here. First of all, prepare questions for your founder CEO around your product company and their expertise. So can you maybe share some best practices when it comes to ideating the questions for LinkedIn, especially?
Sure. I'll take a step back, which is, I think, when you think about incorporating founder branding, founder-led marketing into your marketing mix, the core insight is that you may need to make it streamlined, right? Because if you're at the point where you decided this is a good idea, then the problem is usually, well, you're running a company and you have already lots of things on your plate, right? And if you're not a native content creator, you might not be able to churn out content on your own or not very fast. And you obviously don't want to spend hours every day, like writing posts and recording YouTube videos and stuff. So like, the goal is to figure out a process so that it's super streamlined and time efficient for the founder, where they can focus on the core things that only they can do, which is they have the insights and expertise, and all the infrastructure around it is taken care of by other people, by the team. We figured out that one of the easiest way for people to create content is to talk. Like when people sit down and they have a, empty sheet of paper to figure out what am I going to write about, that's a lot of friction. But if you just ask them a question, they can just talk. The first step is just ideating content for your founder by coming up with questions that they can answer, questions around the company, product, their expertise, and maybe some personal questions. And we dive into your question there, and then just asking them those questions and record the whole thing. And then you can just transcribe it and, clip it and edit it, and you have all that content. And The founder really just needs to show up to a 1 hour call once a week and answer a couple of questions.
Especially to like the personal stuff. I think we basically discovered this for ourselves. Like personal content is here, and then there's also personal content over here. Personal content meaning like, oh, I like to eat that steak, or I just went to that vacation or anything.
Right.
But personal content can also be my opinion on this and that. Subject matter expert
Right.
thinks even is this
Right.
and that. Which kind of personal content would you
Right.
go for in your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, definitely this the second type, right? I mean, we made that mistake a lot, and I think that's what people do wrong on like social media in general, probably. And that's the things that often like rattles people on LinkedIn, when people just like post this shallow type of content that just like, oh, I went to this vacation, or it's like a picture of them like working remotely on like a tropical island with their laptop on their lap. And it's just like there's nothing to the content. Yeah, you do want to have some personal content in there because it builds rapport, it adds flavor, it makes you a real person that people can relate to, and people buy from people. But that doesn't mean that you have to post shallow content, right? Like you can read a book and share your top 5 takeaways from reading that book, right? And that book can be completely unrelated to what you're selling as a company, right? Or you could talk about, your hobby of running Ironmans and tell the story of how running Ironman helped you deal with mental health issues, right? That's personal. That's not, has nothing to do with your company, but it's still valuable, right? You're still sharing insights and takeaways and lessons that people can apply in their own lives.
So you have the questions on a weekly basis, you say here. Interview them weekly with those questions and record and transcribe that conversation, for example, with Riverside and Otto, which we do.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share maybe some best practices in that regard? What seems to work better for customers? How should you record the content? Where should you, like, what things should you look out for?
Sure. So yeah, number one is make it a habit. So have it always on the same day, same time. Well, first find the person who's going to interview you. That is probably going to be someone on your marketing team. Maybe your head of marketing, maybe your director of demand gen. We do believe it should be a senior person. It should not be a junior social media hire. Why? Because they need to actually ask you questions that have depth. For them to be able to do that, they need to deeply understand your product, your customers, and your industry. They need to actually understand how B2B buyers make buying decisions so that they can direct you. They need to understand these platforms and how the psychology of people, what hooks them, like what headlines, what topics, what first sentences actually grab people's attention. Pick that person, then make it a habit. Pick one day, one time that recurs, right? So every Wednesday at 2 p.m. for 1 hour, you're recording. It's on your calendar. You know it's happening. You build your schedule around it. That's very important. And then, I mean, the way that we do it, because our goal is to create a daily post Monday through Friday. That's 5 per week. That means on that weekly call, you need to ask 5 questions. So your head of marketing, director of demand gen, whoever that person on the other side of the call is, prepares 5 questions for you. We break topics down into 4 categories: subject matter expertise, product, company, and personal. Subject matter expertise is basically, you sharing your expertise, knowledge, and insights, stuff that actually helps your customers do their job better, commentary on the industry, where things are going, strategies, insight that they can implement, right? Try to be a consultant to your customers, right? Like, what would you tell them if you would be unbiased and not a software vendor trying to shove people, your software product down their throat, but actually tell them what you think are some good best practices. Second one, product. This is kind of more product marketing. This is around your solution, how it works, how it's different from what's out there, differentiators to competitors, the features, the benefits, etc., pain points you solve. Company is more broadly about the company, right? What are you doing? What are your mission? What is your mission? What are your values? Who are you hiring? New offices you're opening up, new funding rounds you close, kind of updates. And then personal, what we just discussed, right? And the breakdown that we generally do is like 50% subject matter expertise, 25% product, and then the remaining 25% is company personal. So an example 5 questions might be 3 SME questions, 1 product question, 1 company question, or 2 SME questions, 2 product questions, and 1 personal question. So you have some framework on how to break it down, and then they ask you those questions. Again, we use Riverside.fm to record it because that allows you to get the full resolution of your camera, the full quality of your microphone, not like Zoom, where there might be loss and glitches and, bad resolution. Toby's unhappy with me for doing these live streams on here, but that's what we use. That's what we recommend people to use. And then you can get some decent equipment, right? There's like the Elgato Facecam, which is really good. There's like the Shure mic, which is really good. I'm using here Rode mic. So, you can spend like a $500 on equipment, and then you get really good freaking quality audio and video. And that's it.
I can imagine, I guess, like since I also started creating content on LinkedIn, like with our process, that in the beginning you also feel like a little bit maybe camera shy. I mean, as a CEO and founder, you already been out there. You have to explain your product to a lot of potential customers, but still being on LinkedIn on video, talking about your solution and expertise can be kind of frightening in the beginning, maybe.
Yeah.
So what if like my CEO or I am as the CEO don't feel too comfortable talking in front of a camera?
Right. I mean, that's again the conversational thing, right? That's the big insight for us. Before we did it this way, the way that we did it, and now thinking back on it, it's so crazy. We would have a brainstorming session with the customer, right? With the founder and CEO. We would talk through what they're working on, what's happening, problems they're solving. We would like write all of that up and record it. Then we would go back and we would come up with topics based on that conversation and say, oh, like he talked about how they're releasing this new feature. We should make a video about that. And then we would write a video script in a Google Doc that kind of said like, hey, here's the main topic. Here's the 3 main points we want you to focus on. Here's how we roughly want you to start the video. Here's the question we want you to ask at the end of the video for the audience. And then we would send that script to the customer, and then they would have to record it. So they would either get, maybe someone in their office, maybe freelance video, because we've always been remote, someone in their office, a freelance video editor, or just literally their phone, set it down somewhere. We would, send over some best practices, and then they would have to record themselves with the script that we wrote for them. I mean, obviously, this was such a massive headache for them. Number one, they had to kind of remember the script. And so they're in their head trying to like talk into the camera while at the same time trying to remember the scripts. That alone was a bunch of, 5 different takes. Because like, oh shit, what was I supposed to say? What was the question at the end? Blah, blah, blah. They would re-record. They would have to set up the equipment themselves and then talk into it. So it really feels like, they're sitting on a chair and there's a camera, and now there's kind of awkward, and how do I sit and what do I do with my hands, right? All of that stuff that happens when you actually need to talk into a camera. So that produced another whole series of takes. And then obviously the problem is they could review the video before they send it to us. So they would review the video and they were like, oh no, I can't say that. Oh, I sound stupid here. Why did I not mention this thing? Re-recorded. Massive friction. Turns out the big innovation for us was to just hop on a call with them, to ask them a question, and then the answer to that question, that's the video, right? And so the goal is what you just said, oh, they feel uncomfortable talking into the camera. The goal is through the conversation to exactly get out of that feeling and to not feel like you're talking into the camera, and instead to feel like you have another Zoom call, just like the 5 other Zoom calls that you already had in that day, with a team member, with your leadership, with your investors, with a potential customer, right? Like you do these calls all the time, and they constantly ask you questions around the exact same thing that we ask you questions about. Why did you start this? How does this feature work? Where do you see this company going? How are you thinking about this thing that's happening in the industry? Blah, blah. One of the skills that your partner that you're recording with, again, you had a marketing director of Dimension, should hopefully be good at. And that's one of the things that we're training our directors on, Toby and Jay. And I think what we're getting really good at is to be able to pull them in and make them feel like they have a conversation rather than they're on stage, the camera's on, and now they have to perform. And it might take you 1 or 2 sessions. It might take your, recording partner to kind of know how to make the transitions from one question to the next so it feels natural, etc. But that's the goal, that you get out of this mindset of cameras on, I need to perform, to, oh, I'm just having another conversation.
You said also that you want to get basically 20 pieces a month. So that would be like Monday to Friday. Assume that you just decided, okay, I want to do content on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That usually also indicates you never really did any content on LinkedIn. So
right.
you're not really posting.
Right.
Should you be worried about like overwhelming your network when you all of a sudden start posting 5 times a week out of nowhere?
I think mostly they overwhelm themselves. Like, yeah, 5 times a week is a lot if you didn't post before at all, or like once a month. But I think the couple of things to keep in mind is, number one, do you really want to make this a channel for you that's consistently driving demand for your company? And if that is the goal, then you need to do it properly, consistent. And if you look at any of the people who are big on LinkedIn, they're posting daily or close to daily. So like our goal is not to like post like some cute posts here and get some likes, right? Like we want to drive pipeline with this. If you think about like, oh, we're going to start a new initiative, we're going to build a cold outbound campaign. Are you going to say, oh, let's send like one email like once a week to like a prospect? No, it's not going to work. You know, you need to send 10, 50, 100, 200 emails every single day. Do that for 3 months, iterate as you do it. And then eventually you might arrive at a process that's really driving pipeline for you. And so like, yeah, if you want to do anything well, you need to do it a lot. The second thing to keep in mind is you might be posting daily. That doesn't mean that your network is seeing you daily on their feed, right? Like if you're starting out with 2,000 connections or whatever, it's not like you post 5 times a week and then 2,000 of your connections see you every single day, right? Like a lot of these people, they're not active anymore. If they are active, they check LinkedIn every couple times a week. When they check LinkedIn, they check it maybe for 10 minutes at a time, right? And so maybe a good assumption is that your average connection sees maybe every 5th piece of content that you post. So that means if you're posting 5 times a week, the average person in your network sees you once a week. That's already very different. Oh, the third thing is we're not producing product pitches here, right? Whereas you just like selling your product in every single video where it's like, hey, go buy my product, right? You're adding value, meaning you share insights and strategies and tips and commentary on the industry that have the goal to help your prospects do their job better. So if that's the goal, then why would you not post more, right? It's helping them. And then also the last thing, the fourth thing, the LinkedIn algorithm is good. Like if you posted a shit piece of content that was not interesting, that was super obvious, that's already been said a million times, that doesn't really add value, then you'll get 3 likes on it. None of your network will see it anyway, because the LinkedIn algorithm can tell very quickly that this is just something people are not interested in, so they stop showing it to people. But when you get something that's really insightful and non-obvious and adds value, then yeah, you get a lot of people to see it, but that's because they actually want to see it.
Right now we're talking about likes, so let's skip to part 2, which is how to measure, right?
Yeah.
So first level, you say message resonance. Use it to like Shield to track engagement on LinkedIn content. Score each post by adding all likes, comments, and shares into one number. Total weight engagement. Can you bring up how we do it and why we do it?
So once you incorporated it, right, and now you have a process to post 5 times a week, you have your product, SME company, personal content, all of that out there, your videos, text posts. Next question is like, how do I know it's working? And obviously, you know, we're in B2B, so even in B2C, what's working means it's driving revenue, right? I mean, that should always be the downstream goal. Otherwise, why do it? Now, we're in B2B, so sales cycles are long, marketing cycles are long. It's not like, you know, someone will see one post, go to your website, fill out your demo request form, hop on a call with your salesperson and buy your 100K ACV software product. So that might take time. So the level before that to figure out, are we moving in the right direction, is engagement. Are people actually consuming the content that we're putting out there? Because if no one's consuming it, then you know for sure it's not working. And then 2, are the right people consuming it? Kind of what we do is, you know, we use a software called Shield, which, you know, you connect your LinkedIn account and then it gives you all your metrics, like profile views, blah, 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 and then content engagement on each of the posts. Each post gets a bunch of different metrics, views, likes, comments, shares, engagement rate, etc. We believe that the number one kind of metric here is the number of engagements, because if you get a video that gets 10,000 views, but literally no one engages with it, meaning no one likes it, no one comments on it, and no one shares it, did you really have an impact? And so I would rather have a video that has 1,000 views, but 100 likes and 50 comments and 20 shares, right? That means that something resonated here. People really engaged with it, consumed it, reacted to it, responded to it, etc. right? And so you just add them all together. You add your likes, comments, and shares of each post together. We weigh them so that each like counts once, each comment counts twice, and each share counts 4 times, because a share is more valuable than a comment, and a comment is more valuable than a like. You can weigh them differently. It doesn't really matter, but you just need to have one metric how to score each post, because then you can easily compare them. And then you can rank them by order, see which posts got the most total engagements. You can filter by category, because personal content will probably always get more engagement than SME content. SME content will probably always get more engagement than product content. It's just the nature of the thing. Doesn't mean that you should post less of, the ones that get less. It's just because it's further down the funnel, right? One way to think about it is that personals top the funnel. It's relevant to lots of people, very broad. People who don't really fit your ICP can learn something from the 5 takeaways you had from reading this and that book. SME is one level down. It's a narrower audience. It's people who are in your industry, have the kinds of problems that you talk about, but they don't necessarily need to have the right firmographics, have the right number of employees to get value from it. And then product, that's really tight for your exact ICP, the exact people you're selling into, what exact pain points do they have? How does your product exactly solve it? So the audience for it's smaller. So by definition, you will get less engagement, but it's still essential to have this content pillar, content type in there, because if you're driving B2B deals, people need to understand these things. It's not enough to just talk about your favorite books.
So you say it makes sense, like if you have, like you look at Shield, that you first of all also like bucket these topics, and then within these kind of categories check
so then
which are the best
only look at your SMEs or only look at your product videos, and then within that category see which one got the most engagements, because that's going to tell a more cohesive story than bucketing them all together. And then, the simple version is just do more of what works and do less of what didn't work, right? So do more of what got a high number of total engagements and do less of what got a low number, right? And so do more of that means create different versions of that same message, create follow-up questions, create content around that same theme, figure out what was the structure of that post, and can we maybe replicate that structure, right? There's lots of kind of downstream kind of things from there, but see what you get to learn from the things that got a high number and try to avoid those that got a low number.
Talking about those who got a low number, I think especially at Chris Walker, we ourselves kind of saw that sometimes the posts with the lowest number are the best posts.
Right.
I feel like maybe we can incorporate this kind of analogy too.
Sure. One of our best pieces of content was a 9-minute video where I do a screen share and I break down our full process kind of front to end. And I got 10 likes and 2 comments, but 2 ICPs reached out directly as a result of seeing that video, and one of them became a customer, right? So that's like a $30,000 post. But if you just look at the 10 likes, it's like, I shouldn't be doing this. So that's obviously where the second step that we just talked about, that we're going to be talking about, what to track, comes in, because revenue always trumps likes, right? So if you know that this person came from this post and they converted, it doesn't matter that it got 10 likes. Clearly this is working. But that's also where kind of what we just talked about comes in, right? Because that was a product video, which is down the funnel. So by nature, it doesn't get a lot of likes. Most of our product videos don't get a lot of likes. So within the category of product for us, it was probably in the upper end of performance already.
Just wanted to make sure to make the point that even though like sometimes you might just not get like 20 likes, 30 likes on each piece of content, that you don't shy away from still doing those.
People, I think this is just a general thing, like all these numbers and tracking and metrics and attribution software, people sometimes forget to use common sense. And so when we're selling B2B solutions that are where people need to invest $50,000, $100,000, $500,000 to work with you, these are not impulse decisions. These are well-researched, well-thought-through, debated decisions that take sometimes 6 or 12 months to make for a buyer. And so when you think about how you purchase these products or services, if you see someone who's just posting about their last ski trip and their favorite meal and where they went on vacation last week, that might get 100 likes, 200 likes, 500 likes. Is this enough for you to say, yeah, I'm going to spend $500,000 with this company? It's like, no, It's like nice to maybe build some rapport and be like, oh, this person sounds interesting, to maybe connect with them and follow with them. But if you're going to spend that amount of money, like you need to build a lot of trust and credibility. And you build trust and credibility through deep domain expertise, right? People want to buy from experts. If I'm going to buy your software, I want to make sure that you guys deeply understand the space, deeply understand my industry and my company and what I'm dealing with. I want to validate that you guys deeply thought about how you engineered and architected that solution. I want to make sure that the people who build it are experts. I want to make sure that the people I'm going to be working with for implementation or support are experts. And so how do you do that? Well, by sharing deep subject matter expertise and insights. And so, yeah, those things are not clickbait. They might be a 7-minute video of you breaking down a business process. It's not going to get 200 likes. It might get 7 likes. But if out of these 7 likes, 5 of them are VPs of engineering at a 500 to 5,000 people company who are your exact ICPs, then yeah, you need to use some common sense to say, something's working here, this is good, even though this post in total got 7 likes, right? So we still need to use common sense.
So let's say you started now. We talked about the first level of measurement. Let's jump into the second level of measurement, which is self-reported attribution. Now we got it finally. Why is that super important to find out if LinkedIn is actually working?
Cool. Yeah. So first step, content engagement. As I said, the goal is always to drive revenue. Now you can track revenue, right? You can see how many closed deals did we get from campaign channel X. Now, again, we're talking B2B. So sales cycles might be 6 months, 12 months, sometimes even 18 months when we're in enterprise, right? From the moment someone enters pipeline to the moment they actually turn into booked revenue might be 12 months. You don't want to wait 12 months to figure out, is this channel working? So one step below content engagement, but still above booked revenue, is qualified pipeline, right? So we're going to look at how many deals in pipeline did we generate that are qualified firmographically, who fit our ICP, and that our sales team, accepted the opportunity of. That's a very strong indicator, right? And so, cool. Now that we know that that's the second level that we're optimizing for, the real thing we're optimizing for, now we need to know how we're actually tracking and attributing that. And so the answer here is self-reported attribution, which is basically just a free form on your contact us demo request form that asks people, how did you hear about us? It's required, so people need to fill it out. It's a free field, free text form. There's not a drop-down menu that has like a couple of options with social media and partner and blah, blah, blah. But like people need to type in text. And what you'll see there, if your channel is actually working for you, is that people mention the channel. And so for us, I made a video a couple of weeks ago where we showed our self-reported attribution data, and we go through, 50 or 60 of our last demo request forms that people filled out on our website. And like 80% of them say some version of LinkedIn promo video, saw you on LinkedIn, someone shared your LinkedIn video, colleague of mine commented on your post on LinkedIn, blah, 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 right? There's different versions of it, but that tells us that whatever we're doing on LinkedIn is actually driving qualified people to enter pipeline by raising their hand, coming to our website and saying, I would like to talk to sales about buying your thing. And so that's the next level down. That's the real thing we're optimizing for.
I think you can even take it one step further when you're on the call. I guess it also makes a lot of sense to ask, like, maybe like, was there a specific piece of content which you kind of liked or popped in your mind where you're like, okay, now totally. I want to actually talk to them to really find out. Haneen had a question here. And what is the best marketing strategy for a solopreneur?
I mean, again, it depends on what you're doing and who you're selling to. But I think if we're talking LinkedIn, I mean, if you're selling B2B, well, maybe you can say what you're doing, Haneen, if you want to put it in there to make it a little bit more specific. But I think if you're selling B2B services or products as a solopreneur, I don't know, you're a coach, you're a consultant, you're a freelancer, you're just starting out your agency, whatever it is. I mean, again, LinkedIn, I think, is a great channel because it's where the B2B decision makers are on. And then I think it's the same thing, it's the same kind of framework applied to you, which is post as often as you can on LinkedIn, share your insights, your thoughts on where things are going, the industry, tips and insights that you might have, answer questions that your customers and prospects ask you in a piece of content, talk about what you're doing and how it works and why you're doing it and how you're different from the alternatives, and, build in public, right? Share updates of how you're doing and how you got your first customer and all of that. I guess in the end, it's like building a personal brand on LinkedIn, right?
So let's talk about what are realistic expectations for success with this strategy. What is the timeline where you can kind of expect to at least people say or mention LinkedIn?
I mean, it depends on a couple of things. Number one, it depends on how often are you posting. If you're posting 5 times a week, that's 5 goals on shot per week. If you're posting once a week, that's 1 shot on goal. It's literally going to be 5 times faster to get results if you're posting 5 times a week compared to once a week. That's one. The second thing is like how much of what you're doing and selling is already validated, right? If you're starting out and you already have a product that's built that already has paying customers, you're already past $1 million in revenue, you already have an exact customer profile that has the problem that you're solving. You have already validated the messages that resonate with them, the pain points that, they're most urgently trying to solve. That's going to be much faster than if you're just starting out, you're pre-revenue, you're still building your solution, you just started out, and you don't really know yet what you're selling. You don't really know yet whom you're selling it to. You don't really know how you're positioning and what your messages are. Then it's obviously going to take a lot longer. And then lastly, how expensive is your solution? Even within B2B, there's a massive range from like a $7 per month per user tool, Slack, to, enterprise software where it starts at 100K, right? And so we understand that for these two, sales cycles are very different, right? The first one might be transactional, where it's almost B2C, where someone can just see one ad, go to your website and sign up for your product. Sales cycle of, 1 day. And then enterprise sales can be up to 18 months. But before the sales cycle, there's the marketing cycle, right? Which is the sales cycle starts when someone raises their hand and says, yeah, I want to have a meeting. I want to talk to sales, until the moment that they're marked as closed won in your CRM, they signed the contract or whatever. The marketing cycle is what happens from the first time someone ever hears about you until they raise their hand and say, I want to have a meeting, I want to talk to sales, and then enter your sales cycle, right? And that cycle is also can have a huge difference in length depending on your ACV. Same thing, right? $7 per dollar per user tool. I might see like literally one creative, one ad, click on it, convert. For enterprise software solutions, someone's not going to see one video, be like, oh, this is interesting, let me request a demo with their sales rep. They're going to be like researching you, figuring out what it is exactly that you're doing, how it works, what are all the different feature sets, how do you integrate with the current tech stack, how much support is included, what's your exact price. They want to know that before they hop on a call with you. They're going to compare you to competitors before they hop on a call with you. They're going to reach out to colleague to ask who's maybe already used you before they're going to hop on a call with you. They're going to go to their budget holder and see if this is this roughly in the range of when we might be budgeting for this quarter, next quarter, yet next year. They want to do that before they request a demo with you, right? So all of that consideration research happens before they enter into your sales cycle, which is the marketing cycle. So long answer here, right? So it depends on a lot of things, how high your ACV is, how much traction you already have, and how often you're posting. For us, the goal that we set with customers is that we post 5 times a week. So we have a high amount of content. We work with customers once they pass $1 million in revenue. So that way we have at least a good inkling that they have something working for them, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have paying customers. They already have a product that they're selling to happy customers. So that's already kind of in place. And, they're selling into mid-market or enterprise, but I would say the average sales cycle for people who work with us are anywhere between 3 to 12 months. And so for us, by the end of the third month, we want to have hand raisers. We want to have people who raise their hand through the activities, through the content, through the ads that we're running, and say, yeah, I heard from you through your CEO posting, and I would like to learn more about your solution. And they're firmographically qualified.
So now you also
But that's ambitious. That's ambitious.
Okay.
I think that's ambitious.
Since you mentioned ads,
Yeah.
let's hop on the third and last topic, which is leverage using ads.
Yeah.
Leverage the best performance of content of your founder, which you posted organically before. You bucketed with Shield to know like which were the best performance of each category, and then you use them in you use them in LinkedIn ads to educate your buyers and build trust and credibility.
Yeah.
Let's talk through it.
So I mean, in a sense, we're stacking leverage. Yeah. Right. So if you think about founder-led marketing as the next stage as you transition out of founder-led sales, it's hands-on, one-to-one, right? You're in there in the deals with customers. You can only do that until some point as the founder, because you only have so much time in the day and you can't be involved in 20, 50 different deals. So then you're going to hire a sales leader, VP sales, you're going to hire some SDRs or BDRs, and they're going to handle it for you. Oftentimes performance drops at that point. Your win rate goes down. Why? Because they don't have the same gravitas. They don't have the same authority. They don't have the same affinity to the product. They can't tell the story and the why behind why you started this company. All of that is missing. So win rate goes down, which is fine because you have greater scale. So it kind of works out the math. Now, founder-led marketing is the next stage after that, where you can scale your time as a founder to provide air cover to your sales team by being out there, educating prospects, evangelizing your category, building trust and credibility in your market at scale by creating content. Why is it scaled? Well, because in a sales call, you can only talk to one prospect, one at a time. If you create content on LinkedIn, you can record a video once, write a post once, and 100, 1,000, 10,000 of your prospects can all consume that same piece of content. Well, you only spend time on it once, 1,000 of your prospects can all consume it. So that's leverage. And as you're building your audience, you're getting more followers, you're building more trust and credibility, you're kind of scaling your reach and your leverage with that. But you're still producing that piece of content once, you're posting it on LinkedIn, and then after 3 days, after however many prospects have seen that piece of content, it kind of gets lost in the feed, right? Like after 3 days, no one else looks at it anymore and it's gone. And then you produce the next and the next and the next piece of content. One way to stack leverage is to then go back and analyze, okay, out of this stuff that I've now posted organically, what resonated the most with our buyers? What did they actually engage with? What did actually inspire them to take an action? And then take those and leverage them through ads. And so that's going to do two things. One, you're going to give your best performers longevity, because instead of posting it once and it's out there for 3 days and then it's gone forever, you can keep using it and keep running it. And then the second thing is, if you're starting out, you probably don't have a lot of followers. And even if, you do this for 6 months, 12 months, your audience will not consist of all of your ICPs and target accounts. It's going to consist of a fraction of those, right? And so when you're selling a technical B2B solution, the content is not always like the most hypey, clickbait, engaging content, just by nature. And so it's hard to get people consume it at the rate that you want them to. And so the ad components solve that second part too, because with LinkedIn ads, it's so powerful. You can just feed into LinkedIn your exact ICP. So you can tell LinkedIn, please show my ads to only VPs of engineering at data and analytics companies based in the US who have between 500 and 5,000 employees and are growing at more than 20% year over year. And then LinkedIn is going to show your content to only and exactly these VPs of engineering, and to all of them who are active on LinkedIn. Obviously, if they don't open their LinkedIn app, then they can't see the ad, but otherwise they're going to see the ad. So you can reach your full target market, basically. And you can feed your target accounts, right? If you're selling into enterprise and you have an account list of 100 accounts you're selling into, you can just feed these exact 100 accounts into a LinkedIn campaign. You can target all of the departments where, your buying center might sit. the engineering department and the operations department and the financial, the CFO's office, right? And then it's only going to show ads to exactly these departments and exactly these 100 target accounts that you have. So you're stacking leverage, right? You're taking the content that you already validated organically and you're giving it longevity and you're scaling it to reach your whole target market who's active on LinkedIn to see your message.
Yeah, that's super powerful. I mean, we went into the kind of LinkedIn ads thing together with Justin Rowe. I can link the podcast episode right here in the chat. So we don't have to dive into that right now, but maybe to kind of sum it up, can you see like what industries do you see work best for founder-led marketing, or are there any industries which seem to work best from our own perspective maybe, and also overall in the market? What do you see?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, definitely, B2B, right? So anything where you're selling expensive, complex solutions to senior decision makers, right? If you have a transactional, even if it's a software product or whatever it is, e-com, I think it's not as powerful because it's a lot more about the actual product and user-generated content, etc. Really, I mean, it works across really any business where you need to demonstrate expertise, right? Where the purchasing of your solution, whether it's a product or service, is heavily dependent on whether the other person, the buyer, perceives you as an expert or authority in what you do. That can be an agency, that can be a consultancy, that can be a financial services company, that can be a software company, that can be a healthcare company, that can be a construction company. I don't know. Like, I guess for LinkedIn, especially explanatory stuff, so like hardware might be hard, but whenever like there's a lot of expertise, people need to validate, and where your people are on your process. I mean, we're talking LinkedIn founder-led marketing. You can use Sales Navigator to see whether your buyers are actually active on LinkedIn, right? Like we once worked with a construction company. They did waterproofing. So they were a subcontractor of the developer and they did that waterproofing part of the construction. And so the budget holder, the person who signed off on the kind of budget for that was the kind of CEO, owner, whatever of the development company. Turns out how people purchased that was driven bottom up. So it was usually the project managers and superintendents and construction managers who are on the construction site 24/7, who, find out which waterproofing solution to use and drive that decision. And when you go on LinkedIn, you find out that these people are like super inactive on LinkedIn because they're just literally on the construction site 24/7. They're not your classic kind of career, ladder climbing, they're blue collar people who are out there in the real world and, not scrolling on LinkedIn. So obviously you need to validate that.
Cool. I mean, we basically covered the whole process behind it. If you have anything to add, Finn, feel free to add.
No, I think this is fun. Cool.
Make sure to follow the podcast, where we will be uploading the latest episode really as soon as possible, usually like within 3 days.
We're still figuring that part out.
Yeah, we're
how fast we can do.
Other than that, see you next week.
Yep.
And last words are coming from Finn.
No, thank you guys for being here. And yeah, we do this every week, every Wednesday, same time, 6 p.m. Central CET, 12 p.m. EST time. So yeah, would love to see you guys here next week too. Bye.